Watching for the lights, they are on. Good start from pole position. That's the battle for the championship lead, just 7 points separating those two. Is he going to be able to get the run here? There's contact there. This is going to be another massive story and another driver potentially on with a podium finish. Oh, he's got it! He's got it!
Well, it is time then for the penultimate round of the season as we look to settle our finalists. The focus of getting inside of the top 16 of the girls and boys categories, all aspiring towards that grand prize of a seat in the 2023 British Formula 4 Championship. The road has not been easy so far. Chaos over the opening 3 rounds of the season, but we've moved steps forward in our search for the future superstars of tomorrow, and we have had a great journey in doing so. Last time out, we saw 2 new race winners when we went racing at the Temple of Speed, and as you can see, we move from historic circuit to historic circuit. This time, our ventures take us deep into the Ardennes to a circuit synonymous with the sport we love. It is, of course, Spa-Francorchamps. It does not get more legendary than this as we look to continue our championship round number 4 of 5 in the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports competition UK. In the commentary brief this round, as it was for the first 3 rounds, of course, it's myself, Lewis McGlade, Cameron Rodger alongside me. And Cam, let's be honest, we've loved watching this series grow, even over the first 3 rounds of the season. New drivers have been coming in and challenging at the top. We've had a lot of fun in the booth, and to be fair, moving to a circuit like this, that doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, does it?
Absolutely not. The scenes in Monza were quite hectic and chaotic at times, and I'm sure that's going to continue into Spa. But I think it's going to be a little bit more settled down here with Monza. Obviously, you have straight after straight wheel here. You've got loads of fast corners, especially in Sector 2, to get the drivers sort of getting some side-by-side action maybe in those corners. And I think this car is going to produce some great racing here. And the drivers really starting to fight for those final points with just 2 races left to get themselves inside that all-important top 16 in the standings.
Yeah, of course, we know how this works now. We're starting to get to grips. Anyone who hasn't joined us for any of the rounds so far, essentially we have 2 races across the evening. We'll have the girls' race first and then the boys' race. We'll begin by seeing on-track action in a few moments' time once they begin their qualifying session, which obviously sets the grid about 15 minutes long, and then we'll move into a half-an-hour race. No pit stops, it's just flat-out sprint racing. I can tell you based on the practice times at the moment, the girls, the top 3, are very, very close indeed. We'll then take a quick break after the girls' race before we jump into the boys' race and see them take on the circuit. And after that race that they had last round out in at Monza, it was absolutely incredible. The girls' race also, we've had a couple of rounds where the girls' race has been okay. The first round, not so much. The second round, we had a little bit of a tease. They all started to close up, and then a couple of mistakes. Monza finally delivered, though. I will say that. I really enjoyed the Monza girls' race. It was really, really fun, and I do genuinely think we are going to see the same here, especially with how close the top 3 are.
Yeah, top 3, just a few tenths between them in the practice session at the moment, and I'm sure that's going to continue once we get into qualifying. But the main important point that we saw back at Monza was that Monica Bolton-Ramos, maybe overall the fastest driver, but just showing a couple of little mistakes here and there and letting the win slip away. And that can certainly happen here around this 7-kilometer circuit today. Loads of tricky corners and difficult braking zones. Obviously, you'll be running, quite a low downforce setup, trying to get the car really fast in a straight line, but then also in the corners you need to try and keep the speed there, and that's where the driver's skill comes into it.
It really is a tricky circuit, especially in the cars where it is momentum is king. Some of the circuits which typically in the cars we'd see racing around here, typically, let's be honest, everything races around here, so there isn't really a typical style of racing to take to it, with the exception of things like Formula 1, which is the expected bit. But then when you consider the 24 hours of Spa, touring car racing, everything comes here. And proof of that, it's been open for over 100 years now. Obviously, that's it past its century of being open. Last year, a fantastic and momentous occasion for such a brilliant circuit, met with a fair amount of flooding, unfortunately. The car that will be taking to it today, obviously, sometimes might be considered as not the typical style. Open wheelers, yes. bit of low power though in comparison, just 160 brake horsepower, very, very light in this, an inline 4 engine. A lot of fun to race though, a lot of fun to drive. But we have seen some difficulties, Cam, this season. It is not an easy beast to get hold of, especially when it comes to wrestling it over curbs.
Yeah, it's not an easy car at all. As you say, you've got to be keeping the momentum up. So that makes the corners so important to get the exits out onto the fast, long straights. And especially with the way that we saw the slipstream working, you can really gain a lot of time. At Monza, something in the region of half a second, maybe a little bit more if you time it absolutely perfectly. And I'm sure we're going to see that, especially when we get to the boys' race later. We're going to see a huge slipstream effects with a lot more cars on the field as well. And that's just going to continue as we get into the race. You're going to be fighting for position, trying to be getting up the Kemmel straight up to Les Combes, trying to be getting a bit of side-by-side action into the braking zone as well. But it might be quite difficult to defend because that slipstream will really pull you up and slingshot you past your opponent.
We saw the calendar a little bit earlier on. We've already had 3 rounds of this, leaving us with the championship standings in their current scenario. It is Monica Bolton Ramos at the top of those standings with 71 points. But it was Macy Hitter last round who took top honours away from Monica Bolton Ramos and basically kind of positioned herself in the kind of the real challenger spot and carrying that momentum into this round. Fantastic speed that she's got and certainly proved that at Monza. Jess White as well with a couple of podiums. Ella Wrigley, Lois Millward, Jazz Shaw, Charlotte Bell and Chloe Grant, who we can confirm Chloe Grant is returning to the championship this round, which is always good to see. We like to see returning names. Of course, we can't expect everyone to do the entire season, but it is nice to see some of those. But Monica Bolton Ramos in form, but I agree with your point. Potentially a few too many mistakes, which we did see back in Silverstone.
Yeah, we saw back in Silverstone. We saw it especially last time out at Monza, going down the inside. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been White on the inside of the final corner, and just spinning out the car, then losing loads of time, trying to come back, and then went off again a bit later on in the race as well. Really let the girls at the front pull away a bit. And when you lose, when you're out in the front, you got a 10-second lead, you do a little spin, that's fine. In the grand scheme of things, you're not going to lose position. But when the competition starts getting tight and these girls start coming really close together, you're literally a couple of seconds apart between, 4 or 5 drivers. If you start making those mistakes and you lose those same 2 or 3 seconds, before you know it, you're at the back of the pack. Then you've got to do loads of overtaking, and it just makes your race so much harder. So that consistency factor is certainly a big point to look at moving forward.
We've had 8 drivers over the season in the girls' race, and we'll take a look at our entry list for today's action. We are down to 7. It's Lois Millward, who's the sole person not on the grid today. Macy Hitter, Jess White, and Monica Bolton Ramos, your top 3. They've been on the podium as well, obviously, in previous races. Ella Wrigley, Chloe Grant on her return, who's definitely someone who I'd keep an eye on because actually went quite well in the early stages of the race back in Spielberg. Charlotte Bell and Jazz Shaw, who we know Jazz Shaw is quite popular based on how things were last round. Got a lot of love in the chat, and I'm sure that's going to be the same today.
Oh, absolutely. Good to see some fans getting involved as well. And obviously these girls will be making it to the LAN final as well, just naturally with the numbers in the competition. So I'm sure they'll be all able to meet up, maybe at some couple of groupies and fans going there, and hopefully making that a really nice event as well. But also, with obviously the prize being a real life seat, you're obviously going to be getting yourself out there, and having a bit of a following is always going to help you in your career with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remember, there is one more round after this. We'll head to the Hockenheim Ring on the 2nd of April, but the qualifying for that is presently open. So if you yourself fancy having a go, you can do so by opening up RaceRoom. You can download it through Steam. Also, you can go to racingstar.com to find all of the relevant information on this championship. Of course, there is the schedule on there. There is the car that we're racing in. And there is the awards, the prizes section about the training to qualify for an FIA competition license that includes advanced ARDS training, direct go-kart training, KZ go-kart training. There is so much in that training itself to all prepare for racing in the 2023 British Formula 4 Championship. But there are also prizes for 2nd and 3rd, including a karting championship, winning a Club 100 Experience karting championship, as well as prizes to the top 10 coming from from ROKiT, giving an e-bike to the top 10, which I think is obviously a fantastic prize. Anyone who's had a go on an e-bike will know they are tremendous fun. Anyone who says it's cheating, I respond by turning my motor all the way up and riding away from people because it is just hilarious fun. Qualifying though, Cam, is about to get underway, so we get to see Spa in full action, and boy do I love this track.
Yeah, it is great. As you say, almost every series in the world comes here. It doesn't matter if it's endurance, if it's sprint racing, if it's Formula One, if it's lower levels. I mean, a lot of the lower tiers actually come here. Even the the British F4 Championship actually comes here, even though it's the British one. They do all the tracks over there. They also then come over the channel onto the continent and come to this track for a reason, because it is so good. And the one unfortunate thing that you don't see in the sim is just how so undulating, just how big the elevation changes are at this track. I've had the pleasure of going there myself in real life, and the hills are so steep. It is quite incredible. But yeah, certainly the racing will be showing that as these girls are on their outlap, trying to find their place on the track. And really, it's Ramos has a bit of an issue. I'll come back on the track, but trying to find your place, because getting a slipstream here could be worth many tenths of a second. And with just how close it was in practice, I think it's going to be quite important to do that, especially with Ramos. See her in the red car this time, the number 3, because she's just a bit on the back foot compared to her normal pre-qualifying position.
I was going to say that. We've seen Monica Bolton Ramos in 3 different cars over the opening 4 rounds now of the season, and the numbers aren't really getting much better. And Macy Hitter is the one, the fastest. Has been fastest before this season, it must be said, with Macy Hitter. But really is looking faster. The times towards the end of practice, I will say the top 3, Macy Hitter, Jess White and Monica Bolton Ramos, for quite a lot of the larger portion of the practice sessions, they were genuinely separated by about 0.3 of a second. Macy Hitter, though, late in the session started putting in some quality lap times and pulled herself not far off a second clear of the 2 behind, which around here, yes, it sounds like a major margin, but honestly with the slipstream, you can absolutely keep up in that ballpark of around about a second around here, because you can actually just sit in cars like this right on the rear end through that middle section. Yeah,
and the sort of the racecraft part of that is going to be very important indeed, with it being a 30-minute race. We did see Ramos get not the best lap one, and then tried to make it all back up in the final corner, and then ended up spinning with White, as we mentioned, and then losing it all. So it's very important to choose your time wisely and really make those overtakes at the correct point to know that it's going to be sort of the most efficient. Because yes, you can overtake everyone as soon as you get up behind them, but is that battling then going to lose you time to the cars ahead? Maybe it's going to let some guys behind catch you up, and then before you know it, you're sort of ruining the overall picture of your race. So that is, quite an important factor for these girls to get used to. But already coming up the Kemmel Straight, I mean, they're just a little bit too far away to get the bulk slipstream, but maybe just a few thousandths here and there.
I hope we're not going to start arguing on corner names and such, which obviously here at Spa there is a whole multitude of corner names as we'll ride our way up towards the undisputed Les Combes. That one we've all got, fair enough. Final section of this part, though, as you run through the right-hander of Malmedy up onto the curb on the left-hand side, down the hill towards, some people call it Bruxelles. Rivage is a much better name, in my opinion. A little bit wide there from Macy Hitter, pulls it into that second apex, which you can absolutely do, down to the corner with no name, Speaker's Corner, X Curve, I think it's also been called, down the hill towards Pouon or Double Gosh. You could just throw out random names and people will go, yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
Well, you said the track was 101 years old this year, so it's been through quite a few changes over the years in terms of, obviously, the track layout was quite a major part, although that was obviously quite a while ago now that changed. But obviously the corner names and such, with different drivers, different sponsors maybe at certain times getting involved with that, and obviously changing over the years. But that's why we like these historic tracks, because they have a lot of character about them, and especially with Spa over the years, they've sort of done a lot of changes, and this year in real life they've done a huge amount of sort of safety related changes and trying to get the motorbikes coming back here as well in real life. So that is going to be great to see. But on track today, here on the sim, it looks like Macy Hitter's getting a good run, a good slipstream towards the final corner from Ella Wrigley, and that could really improve her time in that third sector, as long as she's not losing too much time through this final chicane.
Oh, I think did get delayed a little bit by Ella Wrigley there, especially as Wrigley had disparted that chicane whilst lighting up the rear end of that car ever so slightly. Macy Hitter then across the line to set the first time in the session at 2:29.7 based on practice. That's not going to be good enough. Definitely needs a lower 28, and Monica Bolton-Ramos the one hitting that one home as she jumps up onto provisional pole at the moment by 0.3 of a second, just ahead now of Jess White, Macy Hitter and Ella Wrigley. Of course, lap times still to come in from the likes of Charlotte Bell, of Chloe Grant and Jazz Shaw. But Monica Bolton-Ramos, I think she might be a little bit irritated with how things have gone over the last round. Yeah, a few too many mistakes. Now, drivers react to this in different ways, don't they, Cam? Yeah, we've seen this before from our own racing experience. I'm sure we've reacted from our own actual on-track experience of when you've had a bad couple of rounds. Some people then tend to carry that momentum. They tend to just have a bad couple of rounds straight after, and it is suboptimal, it must be said. Other drivers, though, when they've had a bad round, they're like, right, I'm going to brush that off, I'm going to come back stronger next time, and then start hitting it out of the park.
Yeah, see, this is a situation I'm in one of the series I race in over in FSR, the league that I run. Since I moved up a division in 2019, there's been 30. No.
Sorry, mate.
It's a good fact, this one, because Felix worked this out the other day. 38 races have taken place since then, right? I've DNF'd 19 times. And the best fact is I haven't even taken part in all of the other 19 races that I didn't DNF. So, yeah, it certainly happens in certain series. And I admit that is a bit of an extreme one. But yeah, certainly you do need to try and get yourself up off the ground when you have a bad result, and sort of forgetting about it in the grand scheme of things. When you're on the track, you just need to be focusing on that specific race and, you know, that specific session, that lap, and even that corner sometimes. Don't focus too far ahead. Don't get ahead of yourself thinking of what could happen, both in the good and the bad. You just got to focus on what you're doing right in that specific moment and going as fast as you can, and really maximizing the result, because, you know, you can't change the past, but you can change the future with how you're driving at that moment in time. And certainly this is a good opportunity for Monica Bolton-Ramos to improve that. Already sitting on that provisional pole as they come, looks like slowing down just a little bit to find some gaps before opening up this next hot lap.
Yeah, the lap became illegal in the middle sector. Macy Hitter, though, goes to the top. Macy Hitter with a 2:28.2. So it needed to be a low 2:28 to go and grab that pole position. Certainly was so from Macy Hitter on that lap. Bolton-Ramos was looking decent in the first sector, gaining a good couple of tenths, to be honest, and then lost it in the second sector by running over the track limits. We will give you some plaudits, though, Cam. This is the WCS League Voltage Series champion.
Oh yes.
So you know you've done some things that are all right. Don't worry, we won't tell you too far.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm bad, but that is just a really good example. And when Felix, a friend of mine, said that stat last week, I was very shocked at how bad I was in that certain series. But yes, that's the old Voltage League. Man. Yeah, the old Voltage League. You and me doing a good job teaming up in that one. But yeah, that is certainly a more extreme example. As we've got Ramos going really nice first sector once again, coming through the Lacombe chicane. Very tricky in these cars, actually. If you see, we're obviously doing 2.5 minutes. That is a long time to stay concentrated in a car like this, and there are obviously still quite a few corners around this track that are important. So it is probably one of the more difficult qualifying laps, I would say, especially in these lower power cars.
It's not easy. Now, I've done some qualifying, not quite in cars as low powered as this, but essentially in sim racing terms, junior formula, in lower powered, closer to the GP3s, GP2 style cars. And honestly, this is the track that I have struggled with on qualifying the most. It's not just because it's a hard track. Yes, sure it is, but everyone is well experienced with this track, so everyone knows where all the corners go. It's not as if like you're racing at some circuit which Zach Sweeney's never heard of, like Phillip Island or something. There are circuits. Sorry, I've got to throw him under the bus a little bit. He's not racing today. It's in that category of circuits that people absolutely know like the back of their hand. That's difficult. But then with it being 2.5 minutes long and you're only given a 15-minute session, and a reminder to anyone just joining us for the first time here in RaceRoom, racing experience, qualifying sessions and stuff, once that timer hits 0, the session is done. We move over into the race. There is no waiting around in that sense. We are straight into the combat. And the problem is that means that comparatively to other qualifying sessions around here, you have even less time.
You certainly do, and
goodness.
that is not going to help with Ramos going down the inside of Ella Wrigley there quite aggressively into that final corner. And I don't think she's going to be improving her time there, not with a 2:30 30. And as you say, with the outlaps, that's another 2.5 minutes that you've got to do, which I think is one reason why we're seeing these girls sort of continue throughout the qualifying session, trying to get a clear lap and really trying to find the space on the track to do so, which is a little bit more difficult than you'd expect actually around here, with all the girls trying to get a little bit of slipstream and sneaking out from each other.
Yeah, like you say, qualifying around here. How would you play it? Because obviously there's sometimes between drivers a little bit of communication, whereas in this there's no teams or anything. There's no teams championship. You're out there just for yourself. How do you put yourself in the best possible scenario? Because especially with the pace differential when the girls race, you can't just pick your slipstream up from any random driver. You need to pick and choose, and sometimes that is easier said than done.
Yeah, a lot of the times you see this in this lower formula where you can actually almost see the pole position driver actually have a clear lap on their own, because sometimes you actually lose time trying to get the slipstream with someone, trying to follow someone. If they make a mistake, if you make a mistake, it can get a little bit more awkward, it's a little bit more tense, and sort of just a bit of added pressure in some ways, as Ramos there goes quite wide through the first apex of Puan, and we'll probably be losing a little bit of time coming down towards the end of this second sector as well. So yes, sometimes you do see those pole laps on your own because you can have a clear track, a clear head, no one else to focus on, because it is actually quite distracting having those cars around you when you're trying to do the absolute perfect lap you can. But coming through the sector 2 time beam, are we going to see Ramos do actually I think we must have got a cut track in that middle sector, I believe, on this lap, so I have to go around again for another time, and it looks like Ramos is still continuing to struggle here in this qualifying session.
Yeah, it seems like it's the second consecutive lap that Monica Bolton Ramos has seen basically just crossed off there, which is a bit of a shame, gotta be said. And with the timing left in the session, these laps they are coming around to complete are their last laps in this session. So Monica Bolton Ramos, who peeled off into the pit lane there, second is as good as it's going to get. Macy Hitter has already completed her session as Jess White crosses the line and cannot improve. Final laps coming in, and I'm not seeing any major improvements, Cam. I think Macy Hitter is going to be starting this one from pole.
And that would be very good to continue off the success she had a couple of weeks ago back in Monza, having a great run of form there, and also just in general having a pretty good season so far. Struggling a little bit with the race starts, but that can obviously be improved over time, and hopefully by the time we get to this fourth race, she's had a bit of time to practice and get used to that a little bit more. But certainly the speed is coming there. At the beginning of the season, Ramos definitely had a jump, a bit of a step in pace over the other girls, a second a lap or even more in some situations, and that was just at Silverstone. We come to Spa, which is an even longer track, so in theory the time should be extended, but actually it's the other way around, and Ramos is now behind. So Hitter's certainly done well to improve and get a lot closer, as well as White as well, only being a couple of tenths off Ramos.
Yeah, Monica Bolton-Ramus, by the way, has departed pit lane once again. Obviously, just to go out and get a couple more corners of experience. Every little helps, even though they've done their fair share when it comes to pre-qualifying to get into this. Because, of course, that's how our drivers join this championship. It is by jumping into the pre-qualifying that you can do by opening up RaceRoom and looking under the competitions section and finding the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. Obviously, if you are 14 or 15 years of age and you are a UK resident, you can come and take part in this championship. We have just one more round to go, but qualifying is open for it, and it is at the Hockenheim Ring, which it's a circuit which some people love, some people hate. I prefer the 2002 layout, although I get the feeling it might be a little bit tiresome in a car like this. It would be very, very long indeed, as we'll see the results from this qualifying session. Macy Hitter, Monica Bolton-Ramus starting from the front row. Of course, they are our two race winners in this championship, with Jess White, Chloe Grant, Ella Wrigley, Jazz Shaw and Charlotte Bell directly behind. Chloe Grant, I will say, 2.6 seconds off, but we saw that race pace back in Spielberg. Wouldn't necessarily rule her out of actually even sneaking a podium in this one.
Especially as we saw how hard that qualifying session seemed to be to get a perfect lap. Maybe that wasn't quite the ultimate pace that Grant could do. So yeah, the consistency in the race pace is where it's all important. Having a 30-minute race, loads of things can happen. Obviously, there aren't going to be as many laps around this track, but there's certainly enough time to still make your positions. And if you remain consistent, then you'll be able to get yourself towards the front. We have seen the real way that some of these overtakes have happened in this girls' race is because of the sort of small mistakes that can come in for some drivers. But hopefully they can all have a nice clean race today and get a good run through this first sector, which can be a bit chaotic with all of the drivers so close together coming out of La Source and then working their way all the way up onto the Kemmel Straight.
We will add a good amount of time, of course, half an hour onto the clock, and we'll see how the racing fares around this legendary racetrack. Of course, over 100 years in existence. We're never bored when we go racing around here. Lewis McGlade, Cam Rodger in the commentary booth as we get ready to go racing in the penultimate round of the girls' race in the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. Macy Hitter starting from pole position and Monica Bolton-Ramus alongside, as we'll have this run all the way down to La Source. It seems like it's not too much of a long run, but it certainly is so. And once again, Macy Hitter not with the greatest launch. It's Jess White who's snuck her way through from third position on the grid, already to take the lead. Monica Bolton-Ramus just slightly into the rear end as they all tap each other on the run down the hill. Not ideal, but Jess White leads Bolton-Ramus, Macy Hitter and Chloe Grant behind.
Awesome start there for White, getting the advantage there already from the third place towards the front of the field. Hitter once again having a bit of a poor start compared to some of the other girls around her, but still in a really good place. But look, it's actually Chloe Grant getting a really good run up through Eau Rouge and Radion, trying to get that slipstream all the way up the main straight, but also back at the front. It is Ramos getting the good slipstream as well. And this is going to be a very important place for overtaking. Is Ramos going to be able to come back down the inside into Lacom? Yes, she is, as long as she can make the apex.
Yeah, she does indeed. Managed to pull that one up. Smart stuff, as going straight across was Chloe Grant. They're a little bit too eager on the brakes, and that'll give a slowdown penalty. Ella Wrigley will come through, potentially Jazz Shaw as well, although not quite, as they depart and head downhill towards Rodger. Look at that down the inside. Macy Hitter, oh, a little bit squeezed there from Jess White. Macy Hitter, though, makes the room. Important move to make as she sets our sights on the red car of Bolton-Ramus, who's now leading this race. Great stuff. Bold move, easy to mess that one up, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, certainly. That could have ended in a crash, but you have to be assertive and decisive in those situations and aggressive, really, because Ramos is potentially going to run away with a bit of a gap, as she has, because Hitter didn't really have a good poo on there, losing a bit of time, a few tenths, and just going a little bit deep there as well into the fan chicane. And look at that round the outside. Ella Wrigley all the way round the outside of Jess White. Jess White having a bit of a poor run through there, losing 3 positions now on this lap.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, that could be classified as less than ideal. I don't know, Jess White looked like she had a little bit of a moment there going into... Oh, big moment there, though, from Macy Hitter off into the barrier on the departure of Stavelo into Paul Frere. I mean, that is easy to do, but that is a big moment for Macy Hitter.
Fortunately, keeping the front wing this time. We have seen her drive without a front wing at her previous track. I think it was the Red Bull Ring, so not ideal to do so. But Ramos's gap that she had at the end of Sector 2 has now come all the way down. Ella Wrigley gets it on the back, although she's gone deep, actually. So White is going to come all the way around the outside. Jess Grant, Chloe Grant, trying to get out the inside of the final corner. A bit of contact made between the pair. And this is looking pretty close between these girls, staying very, it's very in line on this first lap.
Yeah, this would be ideal for Monica Bolton-Ramos, who's leading the way right now, just watching all of this squabbling happen behind. I mean, she did lose a lot of time on the exit of the second sector as we ride on board with Chloe Grant, who we did get word prior to this broadcast, racing on a new simulator for her through this race. And to be fair, it seems like it's working up onto the curb, going over the top of Radion. That might cause the car just to slow down a little bit, not actually getting an in-game slowdown, but obviously the bottoming out, just throwing the car off of the rear wheels ever so slightly and just slowing that momentum, unless it's going to be a monumental dive on Ella Wrigley. That one is a solid no out of 10.
Oh, and they're White once again going a little bit slow into some of these corners here, catching up the girls behind, and that is not going to be ideal for who's there? That was Wrigley there on the back of her, but actually Macy hitting now down the inside of Chloe Grant once again, doing the dive on the second lap in a row. Firstly on White, now on Wrigley, and getting up one of those positions back and looking at the gaps ahead. I think Hitter certainly has time to probably get back to second place, at least if she could put in some good laps and some good overtakes.
Considering the pace that Macy Hitter was showing in practice, this is, I mean, you'd look at this and be like, well, you know, to be fair, Bolton-Ramos is pulling away. We've seen mistakes from Monica Bolton-Ramos, and we've seen incredible pace from Macy Hitter, looking around the outside, going into Piff Paff. Nice little move there around the outside of Ella Wrigley, who did not really fight this one, and she herself was lighting up the rear end, going into the Piff of Paff. I've been told it's also Fania, but let's be honest, Piff Paff sounds ace. Campus also sounds a bit rubbish. I've been told this one's Campus. Again, all the corner names move around at this section of the racetrack as Chloe Grant looks down the inside of Ella Wrigley. A little bit of contact between the two. They both managed to survive, but only just.
That was an aggressive move there. Don't often see an overtake at that part of the track, but Grant making it work, getting up into that fourth place. And I think these top five girls have been in each of the 5 positions. They've been swapping around all over the place in the opening couple of laps here, trying to get themselves in the best position possible. But at the front is Ramos making a bit of a gap now to Jess White, and Macy Hitter is trying to chase them down, get back up into the position where she started. But that's going to be easier said than done, but still plenty of time for her to get back.
This is honestly so much harder than it looks, because if you make a mistake on one corner, you are open for the next one. And look at this down the inside in the background. Chloe Grant, she did get dived by Ella Wrigley down into the final chicane. It is a switch around once more. Ella Wrigley 4th position, Chloe Grant in 5th, both pulling away a fair amount from the likes of Jazz Shaw and Charlotte Bell at the rear end of this grouping. A 3 1/4 second lead for Monica Bolton-Ramos at the moment over White, Hitter, Wrigley and Grant, your top 5 at the moment.
Yeah, looking really good for Ramos this time around, getting to the front and starting to pull that gap where you can get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more calm at the front. Do your own laps, get yourself into a nice rhythm for the race ahead, whereas the girls battling behind is a bit of tension, a bit of stress gets involved, and that is always where the mistakes can come in. But so far Hitter's done a good job to come back, but I don't think that this battle for 4th place is over. Wrigley is missing a couple of corners here and there, which is why she can't really get away from Grant. So there's all that's Hitter was off the inside there, and that is a weird place to have a bit of an accident. Don't often see a car coming off there, but Hitter back down once again into 5th place.
Bad race at the moment from Macy Hitter. This one is not working out right now. The driver that has finished in all positions on the podium in the opening 3 races, started off the season with a 2nd place. The Red Bull Ring, it was 3rd, and then of course that fantastic race victory at the previous round at Monza. A little bit deep there from Ella Wrigley. Chloe Grant's going to be closing up just a little bit. Macy Hitter just needs to time this one absolutely right. A little bit wide there from Chloe Grant. The last 3 races of the championship have seen the same drivers on the podium at the moment, and I think we might well see the same today, as that was a little bit bold and abrasive from Macy Hitter to get past on Chloe Grant. But for her to take the podium spot, does need to clear Ella Wrigley, who had the podium in the opening round of the season. to get up into that third spot, and then it would be Bolton Ramos, Jess White and Ella Wrigley for the third consecutive time.
And Chloe Grant, they're looking on the inside of Blanchemont. That is a very aggressive move. Not working out this time, but Grant is certainly open to trying some of those aggressive moves, which is what we like to see. But that one was maybe just a fraction too late, and unfortunately she's lost out in that battle with Hitter. So yeah, that is going to have to be her in 5th place for now, as we focus back on Ramos, who's having a nice little comfortable time at the front there. Hopefully no mistakes can creep in, because that's been the fault. She's been in these positions before, then makes the odd little mistake, runs a bit wide, and then ends up losing out that time that you work so hard to make. And yeah, hopefully this time is the one where she can have a nice clean race.
Yeah, like you say, just needs to drive clean right now. If there is one person on the track right now that could do with a pretty boring race, it is Monica Bolton Ramos. Because I remind you, with the championship and how it works, for anyone who hasn't seen over the previous rounds, we have 5 rounds in this championship, but essentially there's 2 drop scores. We only take the best 3 results of your season. And for Monica Bolton Ramos, if she wins this race, then all 3 of them are victories. And look at that move to the inside. Macy Hitter was looking for it, did not clear Ella Wrigley. There's been contact, and oh my goodness me, Chloe Grant might be the luckiest driver on this circuit, who was nearly absolutely cleaned off the racetrack from Ella Wrigley, who'd been involved in that contact with Macy Hitter.
Yeah, the girls getting very feisty today in various parts of the track, and Wrigley there going around and not having the best time of it at Les Combes, because she'll be losing quite a bit of time from that one as well, literally going backwards around the track. But that puts Hitter back up onto the podium and is able to chase down on White. But I don't think this is completely over with Grant. We'll have to see just how good her race pace is, but she's certainly looking like she wants to get involved, and I think there could be a podium potentially on offer for Grant here. Best place finish is 4th back at the Red Bull Ring so far, so that would be an improvement by 1. Because yeah, we'll have to see what Hitter does when she gets up to battle with White, as we're expecting.
Well, I will say Ella Wrigley already straight up onto the rear end of Jazz Shaw. Might well make a move fairly soon. Shaw's pace has not been quite there with Ella Wrigley. Last couple of lap times from Wrigley have been in the range of 2 to 3 seconds faster than Shaw. Of course, this lap time will be the exclusion to that, courtesy of the issue. We won't be able to catch a replay, by the way, of that. We do apologise for it. It's just how the nature of things here. But I'm sure I'm sure someone, whoever it is, might well put it into the highlights package, and then we can see exactly what happened. It's what we had to deal with in the previous round of the boys' race, where there was a chaotic moment into the final corner, and Oliver Bunn stole the podium in a very dramatic fashion in that boys' race. Let's see how Ella Wrigley can get back through. Might be a nice, easy move into La Source. But Cam, if you make a move into La Source, it leaves you wide open into Les Combes.
And this could be a good place, though, for Wrigley to get sort of not necessarily overtake around the outside, but get a good run on Shaw out. Because as you say there, if you are sort of leading at one point, you can then get the slipstream back. And it looks like actually that exit from Wrigley really good, getting the track position. But Shaw is just going to come back in, get into that slipstream, and maybe could come back all the way up towards Les Combes, getting all over the curbs on the inside and on the outside of that corner, and maybe just losing a bit of time there. But I think Shaw is just in with a shout of getting slipstream up towards Les Combes.
Yeah, it was just a touch little wide there, going up into Radion from Ella Wrigley, but I think she might well just be saved from the rear end, as Jazz Shaw's not quite close enough, didn't have the greatest launch either. Smart little move from Ella Wrigley, but that could have gone wrong, purely based on the fact of just being slipstreamed once again up into Les Combes. Anyone who remembers 2013 and the battle at the South Korean Grand Prix, this is going back a few years, isn't it? Between Kimi Räikkönen and Nico, was it Nico Hulkenberg? I can't remember.
And Lewis Hamilton, I think, was involved in that one.
Yeah, basically Hulkenberg was in there. Oh, never mind. See you, Jazz Shaw. A couple of mistakes there into the corner with no name, into the barrier and backwards. And that'll take a good 18-point turn to get back going again, pointing to the barrier. Not ideal. Hopefully a nice clean rejoin, as I believe she might well have retired from this race. Either way, but back to story time. Sorry. But I can't remember who it was. Either way, it was definitely Kimi Räikkönen battling with someone. Managed to slipstream his way past down into turn 1. But what follows in South Korea? An enormous straight. And basically just got cruised past. And so we're just like, right, well, that was pointless, isn't it?
It can happen, quite often. There's a number of tracks where the design is like that, and this one is a good example where you have one straight after the other, and especially in a car like this where the slipstream is so important, you really want to have on that second one. And another good example is sort of maybe Montreal, where you have the corner up towards the final chicane, and then you obviously have the start-finish straight as well. And especially in F1 where there's 2 DRS zones, you've got to be sort of careful choosing which one. You almost want to use the first one to get close, and then the second one to overtake, because you can always be vulnerable if you don't do that. So that's why the racecraft and the tactics come into it as well, especially in a race like this where you have a number of opportunities. You don't have to do it on that very first one, so choosing your right time is where you're going to really maybe catch your opponent by surprise.
Yeah, you can see this is where the tactical game is going to come out for Macy Hitter, who has managed to close up to the rear end of Jess White. We'll roll the comparisons on the last lap between Macy Hitter and Monica Bolton Ramos. It was a 28.6 from Macy Hitter. It was a 228.9 from Ramos. Now, whilst you'd be like, yep, that's great, because Macy Hitter's going faster, obviously with 60 minutes left, considering that these laps are exceptionally long, and so we don't actually have too many of them, with there being just 0.3 of a second between the two of them. I'm sure there might well be a little bit more in the tank for Macy Hitter, but that is not going to be enough unless there is a mistake from Ramos up front, which we saw at the previous rounds, of course, at Monza, but we have seen a few times. Distinctly remember running off at Brooklands back in the first round of the season. We went racing at Silverstone, a pretty sizable error that cost in the area of around about 4 or 5 seconds, managed to get back going again. With the run-off around here at Spa, though, I'd almost say, it's running very wide there with Macy Hitter, I'd almost say this is actually one of the more forgiving racetracks. There is plenty of run-off, courtesy of the amount of racing that happens around here.
Yeah, in this specification of the track, you can just see on the exit of this corner as well, not only do you have the curb, you've then got the little green bit of Astro, and then a little bit of tarmac after that as well, and you have that in a number of corners. So you do have the possibility just to run a little bit wide and use a little bit of the track, and if you do make that little bit of a mistake, you aren't really going to be punished for it. As such, some of these more old school tracks, maybe like Imola is a good one off the top of your head. You have pretty much no tarmac runoff there. It's either grass or gravel. Anything beyond the curb, and you're in the kitty litter and you're trying to work your way out, which is easier said than done, especially in an open wheel car, but it's sort of like bottoming out, running really low to the ground on the suspension. So yeah, don't be doing that. And so far, none of the girls, at least towards the front, have really done that in any major way, as Macy Hitter now taking a bit of a tighter line there into La Source, and is starting to get just within the slipstream range of Jess White, and is going to be looking for a nice little battle soon enough.
Yeah, it should be. When this move happens, it shouldn't be that complicated to actually make happen. The problem is Jess White isn't exactly slow. And so the problem with Macy Hitter is, even if she did have aspirations, even if she did have the pace in the tank, with Jess White sat there, if the positions switch, Jess White will be able to sit there for long enough to attack once again, to go for the position, which is just going to slow them down once more as we look backwards from White towards Macy Hitter. Not close enough just yet. Exit from La Source, not quite good enough. At this point, Cam, do you... I don't know if it's the right word, but do you almost concede defeat, that essentially the best position you're going to get in this race is most likely going to be that second spot, and so start to work out tactically how you can get second, which comes down to making the move at the right time, maybe down into the bus stop, maybe at some point coming down into Fania, into Piff Paff, into that kind of area of the racetrack. How do you start playing it? Do you already concede that?
Well, I mean, in one place, from Hitter's point of view, I mean, with the gap that they got behind, she can sort of say, well, either way, I'm going to come third. So she might as well, in that case, she might as well try it. But obviously, you don't want to try it then too much, and completely, DNF yourself from the race. So that sort of risk percentage is something that you got to balance out in your head. Is it worth that second place for this extra couple of risk percentage points? That's the difficult part. That's what you got to work out on the fly. And personally, from my situation, I like to battle for every single position, because you never know how that is going to work at a certain point. Because if Ramos has a big mistake, this could be the fight for the victory in the end. So yeah, conceding is often quite a difficult parts, but hitting out, getting the run through Blanchimont corner up towards the far chicane. Is this going to be the overtake that she's wanted? Just getting closer down the inside, later on the brakes. And can she make it to the apex? Yes, she can, up towards second place. And Jess White didn't really have much of a defense for that.
No, I think that might have been tactical from Jess White, because maybe she is thinking about the long game here of, again, if Monica Bolton-Ramos does have an issue later in this race, well, there's no point in slowing yourself down now. No point in battling tooth and nail over second position at this very moment. You don't need to put it on a defence as if it's for the title. Just almost play the long game. It's a sprint race. Everyone tells me that you can't play the long game in a sprint race. Absolutely incorrect. You certainly can. And that was essentially that from Jess White, though I will say she has lost a fair amount of ground to Macy Hitter in the opening corner of the racetrack. Is going to gain that a fair amount back in the slipstream, but once they run through Les Combes, might be able to keep up, because obviously we know the dirty air that's spat out from the rear end of these cars, not extreme. You can use the slipstream even through the likes of Pouon, of the corner with no name through Maudi. You are still gaining an advantage in your position.
A good example I can think of off the top of my head is, do you remember back in 2020 there was the race sort of all-star series, and they had, like the
You mean the race all-star esports battle? It was a mouthful.
Yeah, I think it was the one after that, where they had sort of like the sim drivers and the pro drivers had their own sort of races. And one of the races was in the Formula Renault 3.5 around Malaysia, and in the sim race, one of the battles for the lead was between, I think it was Yuyovsky and Simoncic. And because the whole point of that series was to have like short, sharp races, it was only like a 9-lap race or something. So it was a very short, sharp race. But even in that battle, in that championship, the tyres in those 9 laps, they were obviously still worse at the end. So if you saved your tyres a little bit, you'd still have better ones at the end. And it's quite crucial in that car to do that. And I remember Yuyovsky at the front of the field, he was pushing so hard, smoking the tyres and all this sort of stuff. And by the end of the race, he was like, 1.5 seconds lap slow. And then Simoncic just came back and overtook. And that is a good example of, even in those sprint races, keeping yourself consistent, keeping yourself in position to be better at the end of the race is still very important, because you always want to be making sure that you're there when the points are paid out, and that is obviously at the end of the race. So taking all the risk in the first half of the race can sometimes be beneficial, but sometimes just maybe waiting a second and keeping yourself in the race for longer is then going to turn out to be the best result. And was it Alan Prost who always wanted to win in the slowest way to make sure that you effectively secured yourself a good result either way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've obviously got to represent your boy Jone Simoncic, Burst Esports Driver, which of course you are a part of that camp as well. That's the same. I do the same thing for a Zancho driver. Don't you worry. Don't whiz-was. I will say, backing your point from my experience when doing touring car racing, when you've got like say for example, you've got like a 5-second lead and there's 10 laps to go. You know that you can afford to, you work it out, right, okay, what's the kind of pace that they'll be running right now? What kind of pace do I need to do? And you kind of work it out of like, you could essentially run half a second off of your current pace, i.e. you could remove all risk of what you're doing right now and you would still win. I mean, half a second off would then drag the gap down to 0, but you follow my point of like, it's understanding all of that and knowing when and where you need to take those risks. Right now for Ramos, for example, at the front, no risk is required. That gap has come down quite a lot though. Might well be pulling off the pace just a little bit too much. The last lap time from Ramos was a 2:30.5. Macy Hitter around 2 seconds faster over the previous lap. I think there might have been a mistake from our race leader. We'll find out as they cross the line this time by. They're currently running into Fania, so a fair way to go among this lap, about 2/3 of the way around Spa with 8 minutes and 20 seconds left. There's going to be a good sort of 4 laps left in this race, which if Macy Hitter is closing 1.52 seconds a lap, that gap is going to come down quite significantly.
Yes, certainly. That is quite a big chunk of time. You're saying before 3/10 maybe not enough, but when you get into the realm of seconds, that is certainly something that can happen. So hopefully Ramos can keep this pace going, this consistency going towards the end of the race. Otherwise, Macy Hitter will be coming for her second win in a row, and that would be quite an interesting result if we saw that, actually, because over the course of the first few races of this season, we'd be saying how Ramos is really the one to look out for these girls. But if Hitter wins this race, that will be basically 2 apiece for both of those girls. And at the end of the day, it's the points on the board that everyone is going to be looking at, not just the potential pace from someone else.
And you got to remember that as much as I think in the girls' race we can clarify this, obviously with it being the top 16 going to the NCME in Bolton to our series finale, we know that these girls are going to qualify, especially the Monica Bolton Ramses, the Maisie Hitters, Jess Wise, they're going to qualify. So in that sense, that's all well and good. But as we discussed earlier in this broadcast, momentum, esports and motorsports go hand in hand in this one, is that momentum is the boss of racing, right? It's the thing that's in charge, it's the thing that decides basically everything. How well are you going to do over the next 3 or 4 races? And so this race win might not seem like that major a deal, but if Macy Hitter can close down an nearly a 10-second gap, close down and pass Monica Bolton Ramos, she's then essentially saying, I am the one in charge of this series. I am the one calling the shots as to who's going to be victorious. And when you're carrying that momentum into our championship finale, where you're not going to get any second chances past that point, it is about going racing and winning on the day. That momentum could be absolutely crucial for our finale. And it's the same thing in the boys' race as well with the likes of Dylan Warren.
Oh yeah, momentum I think is probably one of the most important things, because it will give you those extra couple of tenths of a second over your opponents, not just from skill level, but I guess just more the confidence of the situation as well. We've seen it many times, not just in real life, but in sim racing as well. Many championships where, for instance, in FSR that I run, Mitchie Hoyer back in 2021, started the first 3 races of the season, pole and win, and then you get to the 4th race, pole, leading the race. Halfway through the race, big crash. Wasn't his fault. It was a game bug, and DNF from the race. After that moment in time, struggled to even get near the podium after that. After being so complete, he was about to win 4 races in a row beginning of the season in against top level drivers, sort of above his skill level. One would argue, he may be a couple of tenths shy here or there, but he had confidence in the car, he had confidence in the series, he knew what he was doing on the strategy. He was about to go for 4 in a row, and that one crash ruined his whole season. Well, not ruined, but derailed his fight for the championship, at least in that series. And that is just so difficult to keep yourself in that headspace, because once you have that one bad result, you just lose all that energy, you lose all that tension that you need. And I find that mental side is the hardest thing to overcome in that regard.
Sorry to be harsh, but was he really going to win that race, though?
Who's to say?
It's fine.
Petter was looking
Petter was pretty quick that day. I do remember. But it was very unfortunate. But no, your point is 110% correct. Is that when you lose that momentum, we've seen this time and time again in real life. Anyone who watched World Superbikes, let's be honest, I think in this audience probably it is a number which isn't particularly high. Of those that watched the World Superbikes back in 2019, I believe it was. And it was Alvaro Bautista won the opening 12 races, I believe it was, of the season. One of them got cancelled and they won one in a different round. But I think it was 12 races on the bounce to open a season. You'd sit there and you'd think, right, okay, this is maybe a 30 race season. Once they did 3 rounds. 3 races per round, rather, and I'm pretty sure there was about 12 rounds in that season. Say there was around 30 races. You win the opening 12. You're basically sat there being like, this guy's the champion. And it was kind of like, yeah, fair enough. and then dropped it a couple of times in Donington. They went to Laguna Seca, and he left Laguna Seca. They flew over to the US, and he scored 0 points in 3 races, and ended up not winning the championship, losing by a country mile to Jonathan Rea. And it's just, that is the momentum completely gone. And it is the same in this. If you've dominated this season, you finished first or second. Monica Bolton-Ramus, the best example of this. You finished first or second in all of the races in the season. Obviously we don't know how things are going to go in Hockenheim, but certainly is at the moment on course to take a 3rd victory in this series. As I've just seen on my other screen, Macy Hitter's just had a critical error, and not critical. It's actually just run deep. That's harsh to call that a critical error. But if she goes into the next round and then has a catastrophic error that's on her end, that then shapes the final in a very, very different light. And to be honest, that one crash, that one mistake can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And it can change, and mistakes for other people can then change the course for someone else's season or someone else's race as well. Back in the day when I was racing, fighting for this championship, I remember this one race. I started way down, something like 16th place or something, and I ended up winning that race because there was a big crash at the beginning that took out loads of the top guys, because the crash between the top 3. Then I just came through the field, and then a guy ahead got a penalty for that first corner, which is how I ended up winning the race as well. And just situations like that, even though I had a good race, if they all had good races as well, I would have finished like 8th or something like that. But sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time, make sure that you are keeping your race alive, and making yourself that you are in make sure that you're in that good position, because otherwise obviously you aren't going to be able to take the opportunities when they come. But you as a driver, then you don't want to give those opportunities to other people, especially when we get to the final, and obviously there's no second chances at that point. It's just, it is what it is. If you crash, you crash. If other people do well, they do well. So yeah, certainly a difficult situation to be in, and I'm really looking forward to see actually when we get there how that system is going to play out with these girls, and at what point they take the risks.
Not the fastest lap at the moment from Monica Bolton-Ramus. The last lap, Macy had to close a couple of tenths even with that mistake into the final chicane. You can see there obviously the timer at the top of your screen. 30 seconds left to go in this race. Now, it will be close at the line. I am not 100% sure if we are going to get an extra 13th lap in this race. It will be very, very tight, of course, with it being half hour and 2.5 minutes a lap. I believe we will get an extra lap, unless she bleeds off the throttle a fair amount. You can see with 10 seconds left to go, we'll keep our eye on it. Departing the final corner with 6 seconds on the clock. She could slow down. I think she might well be slowing down enough. Monica Bolton-Ramus is going to cross the line. Is it going to call the race? Yes, it is. To be fair, that was well timed and well judged. Monica Bolton-Ramus, final lap of the race was a 2:31.3, much, much slower than the others, but it was enough to take this victory. Macy Hitter and Jess White will take their 3rd consecutive podiums. Macy Hitter is her 4th consecutive podium. Jess White, it's her 3rd. And Monica Bolton-Ramus wins another race in this championship. Chloe Grant and Ella Wrigley will come across the line to take 4th and 5th, and we'll wait for Jazz Shaw and Charlotte Bell. That was well timed though from Bolton-Ramus to understand the gap and to breathe off the throttle. And I'm going to say, I like that mentality, to be able to be like, right, I can see the gap, I can see how much I can afford to back off, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and to also have the confidence to do that as well, because sometimes it's easier just to stay flat out and go and do that extra lap. So yeah, to have the confidence to do that, to know the situation, to have the understanding is very good. And I think Ramos today has done a solid job. We have mentioned the last couple of races, there's few mistakes creeping in here and there, and especially last time in Monza, dropping her so far back she couldn't come back to the win. But today, got to the front, never saw her again. Solid job, and yeah, good improvement from the last couple of races.
Near perfect race from Monica Bolton-Ramus. The only real blemish on that record would be qualifying, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, qualifying doesn't really pay out the major points. It's all about the race, and in that sense, Monica Bolton-Ramus has dominated. A brilliant race from her. A little bit of threat from Macy Hitter, just courtesy of that excellent pace. But another poor start from Maisie Hitter, and then a few too many mistakes through the midpoint of the race, and that might be keeping her eyes open heading into our finale at Hockenheim before we head to the grand finale in the NCME in Bolton in May. Charlotte Bell is departing the final corner to cross the line and make it our 7th and final finisher. All of our drivers finished. I did think Jazz Shaw had retired earlier on the race. Alas, she did not manage to come across the line in 6th place. The final look at your finishers. Fastest lap of the race as well goes to Monica Bolton-Ramis on her charge to victory, with Maisie Hitter, Jess White, Chloe Grant, Ella Wrigley, Jazz Shaw and Charlotte Bell, your finishers in this race. Of course, the boys' race will be up in a moment. We'll see a qualifying session once more. We'll see another 30-minute race just after this.
This is not only a racing simulator. This is a simulator with 100% Formula One feeling. Made of carbon, it moves over 3 axes and lets you feel every bump, curb and curve on your ride. The belts press you into the seat when you brake and accelerate. You get the G-forces up close. Real brake and accelerator pedals, as well as an original Formula One steering wheel, complete the driving experience. Welcome to Racing Unleashed.
Employability is a critical aspect of the course. We make sure we maintain employment links, we give placement opportunities, there's opportunities with race teams. We also make sure we embed core skills needed for life in industry. The NCME embodies something called project-based learning. So what we do is we build on engineering fundamentals in the first year, and then we embody a real-life industrial scale project in the second year, and you'll design and develop your own race vehicle. That's pretty unique.
I chose Bolton because they have a good variety of courses on the engineering department.
This facility, brand new facility, is fantastic. We have a brand new workshop, we have brand new computing equipment upstairs.
The lectures are really helpful, they're really easy to understand, and if you don't understand something, they'll change the method of teaching so that you do understand it.
Absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The amount of support is just unbelievable, and I think because there's not a lot of students in one class, so you kind of get this more personal relationship with teachers, and it's fantastic.
The best element for me is the fact that we get a lot of outside work, so we do a lot of track work and work experience, and internships are available, quite a wide range for this course.
Has to be, without a doubt, the British Rallycross. That was my first proper experience of motorsport, hands-on in a team environment, and to be able to take that from spanners at the very beginning of the season all the way up to managing data for the finale where we won in incredible circumstances. It was just a fantastic achievement and a fantastic start to my motorsport career.
Well, welcome along then as the boys race will be getting underway in a few moments time. Qualifying, of course, will be underway first before the race here at Spa. Our season has taken us to Silverstone, to the Red Bull Ring, to Monza as well. The final couple of rounds of the season, Lewis McGlade, Cam Rodger in the commentary booth. And Spa normally delivers. Unfortunately, the girls' race started off fantastic. They spread out quite a bit and a dominant win from Monica Bolton-Ramis. I do not think we are going to see a dominant win here today.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think it's going to be possible to do so unless there's some crazy battles in the back, especially back at, was it the Red Bull Ring? We saw, even though Dylan Warren sort of led the whole thing, Mercurius was right behind him the whole way as well. So I think we're looking for an entertaining race once again here for the boys. Hopefully some nice clean battles, as sometimes in Monza it got a little bit crazy, and I think they're going to be learning over the course of the season. But Spa, once again, certainly going to be an entertaining race.
Yeah, we'll take a look once again at this race circuit, of course. Fantastically historical. Sorry, see, that's it. I'm jumping ahead of myself there. The schedule first. The qualifying session will be up in a few moments' time. Same as it was in the girls' race, it'll be a 15-minute qualifying session. Once that is over, once it hits 0, that session will come to a close and we will move straight into a half-an-hour race. They are presently in the practice session, so things are looking pretty tight in that, as we kind of expect. It's Deegan Fairclough who's presently at the top in that session, by the way. But form around here is... Qualifying is one thing, the racing is going to be something completely different because this circuit, which is, of course, a long one. It's a tricky one. It's got plenty of overtaking opportunities, Cam, left, right and centre. And leading, it's like super speedway racing. You've got to time when you're leading. It's not as simple as just lead.
Yeah, especially with how close the times are as well. You're going to see the person maybe 4, 5, 6 cars back in a train, effectively with the slipstream being faster than the leader as well. So you're going to have that speed potential. You're going to be able to make the overtakes. Choosing the right time when to do that is going to be so important. You can't go for absolutely every single opportunity. There's got to be a lot of them in the 30-minute race. Keep it calm, keep it on the track, and see where you are in a few laps.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, the car that we have, same as we have in the girls' race, 160 brake horsepower from this inline 4. Lovely car. Tricky to drive. We've seen that a few times, a few mistakes in the girls' race. We saw plenty of mistakes in the boys' race a little bit earlier on at Monza as well. This car doesn't really like curbs. Thankfully, some of the curbs around here are fairly flat, but when you start attacking them through the likes of Les Combes, Mawardy, once you start heading through down into Peel as well, we saw plenty of mistakes down to Rodger as well. It's a tricky circuit with those. The standings as well, when we come into this, we've had 2 race victories from Dylan Warren, Theo Mercurius as well, right up there in the standings. Zach Sweeney, who sat there in 3rd in the championship, is not here today. Oliver Bunn snuck a podium in the final moments of the previous race as well. Literally came out of the Parabolica and took that podium. And Bryn Collins coming along to the championship and taking a race victory, also not here today in this courtesy of breaking his hand, which is what the cool kids would classify as a very solid F. The champion, so the entries into this round: Dylan Warren, Deegan Fairclough, Theo Mercurius, obviously all of the names that we know and recognise. A couple of new ones on the grid, but let's be honest, picking a race winner from any of this lot is almost impossible.
Very difficult indeed. We saw the likes of Mercurius being so dominant and the Red Bull ring, literally sitting on the back of Warren for the whole race, but then last time having a couple of mistakes, being right up there in qualifying, but then dropping back, getting involved in some incidents and accidents, and that is how you put yourself back down, getting 6th place in the end in that race. So certainly anything can happen, and keeping it on the track is going to be the most important thing here as we get into the qualifying session as well. Getting the slipstream on your lap could improve your grid place by maybe even sort of 4 or 5 places, and all of a sudden your race looks a little bit different.
Yeah, new entries on this list. Ronnie Smith did do last round. I think it's just Nathan Kinrad who's the only driver who's brand new to the championship on this list. Qualifying is underway. We'll jump straight into it. They are on their outlaps. They are building up, which, to be fair, an outlap around here is 2.5 minutes, so we have not missed anything in this qualifying session, but we will head over to take a look and see who's going to be on pole position around here at Spa. It's a pole position which you want. It's a legendary circuit, of course, but I wouldn't say it's a pole position that you need. It's not a guarantee into victory. Just look at how chaotic is this. Honestly, Cam, I would not want to be in this group. I would have waited a good minute in the pit lane and gone out by myself. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is going to be something else. Oh wow, already dive bombs coming into the final chicane, trying to get yourself in a nice position. And let's be honest, guys, this isn't going to be the fastest way to do your qualifying lap, being this close together. So I think this first lap might be more of a sighter lap for some of these drivers. That red car at the front is Theo Mercurius there, leading the way from Nathan Clifford, and maybe trying to work themselves together to get a bit of slipstream. But yeah, as you say, Lewis, I would not want to be involved with this battle, as it's just in qualifying, as we're already seeing some laps get ruined at the beginning.
My goodness me, yeah, Joe Hayes Jr. was one that was way off. We'll look backwards from Theo Mercurius on that run. down towards Eau Rouge, up over Radion. Nathan Clifford right in the rear end might well go for a move here down into Les Combes to carry this good momentum from the 0-4 car. Let's see what happens. We saw plenty of drivers working together, a little bit of bump drafting. The last time I saw an orange car doing that around here on a simulator, it was iRacing, and it was Max Verstappen pushing someone, and I can guarantee you if they do that in the race, it will end up in a crash. In qualifying though, sometimes you've just got to take the risk. Although bump drafting, it's an open wheeler, the rear end is not flat, it is not an easy thing to try and push with the front of your car, but either way, working out quite nicely there indeed.
Almost looks like Clifford has practiced this just a little bit. He's staying really close there, and this is going to work well for both of them, because when you bump draft like that, you especially when you physically make contact, you're effectively turning yourself into one car with sort of double the power, and the air flows over the two just a little bit better, because that second car is basically getting not necessarily zero but a lot reduced drag on that car, and they'll be going faster in a straight line. So this will be helping both of those drivers, and it looks like they can stay pretty close through this second sector, and when it comes to it, they might set pretty much identical times with maybe a couple of thousandths between them.
Pretty sure it was Jack Badger and Marcus Luzio going side by side. And then going straight off the track as well. Luzio, of course, with a top 5 last round out, finished in 5th place, but had a great battle with Deegan Fairclough for that podium. They came into contact down to the Parabolica, allowing Oliver Bunn to go and steal that podium. Oliver Bunn, by the way, I like form and stuff like that, and seeing people improving. Oliver Bunn, round 1, 7th place. Round 2, 5th place. Round 3, 3rd place. That's an improvement of 2 positions every race. Does that mean it would be so poignant for Spa to be a P1, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. Great track on the calendar, but I think this race is a little bit of a lottery, as we're going to see the first times come in, and it is Mercurius there taking that first position. So Clifford certainly giving himself a good lap, actually, but not quite able, not enough to take that position, as it looks like they're going to spin. Mercurius has decided he's not going to tow them around, and he's going to try and find some space on its own, but so difficult to get a clean lap around here, and I think you're going to be seeing a lot of this where drivers could be jockeying for that track position. But as we mentioned earlier, with 2.5 minutes per lap, you don't get many laps here in qualifying, so you've got to be making your one clear one count.
No, indeed, absolutely. By the way, while speaking of qualifying and positions, I have been told something by an informant within the series that there has been a deal struck with one Mr. Dylan Warren from some of the drivers. He put out a deal that if it was £6.40, so there's nothing extreme, but if a certain amount of money was sent as a donation, as a bribe, let's be honest. But let's be honest, that's fine. It's not as if he's asking for £3.5 million. That he would start this race from last, which I think, I respect that. He's giving everyone the option, and all for the price of, let's be honest, these days, a latte.
Yeah, and fair. Oh, as we're seeing some racing, some battling here through Pouhon. But yeah, Dylan Warren doing good things there. Starting from the back is going to be quite a big task around here, because that is a lot of cars to overtake. So fair play for him for doing that. He obviously knows he's in a good position in this championship and putting it to good use. So that is what we like to see.
Yeah, look, again, you're coming along for a bit of fun. At this point, I don't have a problem with it. I've always said that with those kind of things. Do it for a bit of fun. Why not? And also for experience. And to be fair, I almost would have encouraged you, if you're in a secure position in the championship anyway, I would encourage you to start from the back regardless, for one major reason: experience of racing, of actually going wheel to wheel with people, which, I'm not even saying that as a general thing across the sim racing for your career and stuff. Just specifically in this car, what is it like to race up the order in a car like this? Because whilst it's not hard to make a move, it is hard to come up the grid. They are not one and the same. Because, like I said, you pass one person, you instantly get repassed and stuff. It's really not easy to get to the front of the grid. So we'll throw them a little bit under the bus on that one. 3 drivers not setting a time within this session. Kai Bacchini, Deegan Fairclough and Dylan Warren. Kai Bacchini got into the wars a little bit in the previous race, of course, tapping the rear end of your current pole sitter Theo Mercurius, and then I said it then, you know, the rejoin was less than ideal. It was suboptimal. But either way, Kai Bettini did spin out Theo Mercurius quite dramatically there. And I think it got involved in another couple of incidents earlier on in the race. So hopefully looking for a much cleaner round this time out as he crosses the line, the car directly ahead of Will Young that we're focused on. Great qualifying at the moment from Will Young. Deegan Fairclough, who was very fast last round on his debut in the championship as well, was fighting for a podium and unfortunately didn't get it. But starting from 18th, that would be a tall order to grab a podium around here.
It's so difficult to come up the order. Just what you're saying with Warren as well. Overtaking one or two cars is not the hardest thing in the world, but then to continue that and go one after the other, and so on up the grid is difficult. To keep that momentum going, as it looks like we're seeing that a bit of a slipstream sort of help there with Bettini getting right out of the way for Will Young, and that is what you really want in that situation. You want the car to slipstream you all the way up, but then not distract you in the braking zone.
I mean, I think we've kind of had this. We've all had something in this vein in a qualifying session, which is, I don't know, you've got a couple of cars ahead of you, and then they get taken out by someone else, or they all have an incident, and you're just like, oh, thank goodness for that. What a lot of clean air that I've got to deal with. Or in this scenario, just jumping out of the way. Sometimes it is exactly what you need to see. And if you're working with someone, this is kind of what you need to do. Don't try and copy how, like I said it at Monza, how Ferrari tend to qualify. When they go slipstreaming at Monza, it's always a complete mess, and they end up tripping up over each other more so. Find someone that you're good with working with. Find someone that's around your pace. Talk to them. Communicate. Switch. Do it well, and it works out.
Yeah, you just need to time it in the best way, really. But it is difficult, and depending on what straight you do it on, especially, can be quite important. Because following someone for the whole lap, like we saw Clifford do with Mercurius, is very difficult. Having said that, it's actually worked out pretty well because those two have quite a big jump to the third place, which is currently Will Young as it stands. So yeah, certainly. It's a difficult thing to get right, easy thing to get wrong, but if you do get it right, it will lead you. As Will Young, they're almost losing some time. I think Fabian Ballon there in the final corner, and is Will Young going to improve his time, improve his position at all? Or is he actually just going to stay there for now? I think he's just going to stay there and not improve on his time.
Yeah, Kai Bettini with a little bit of work to do. I think Kai Bettini's in for a bad qualifying session here. This is the last lap and been pushed off the track. That's it. Kai Bettini's session's done and is in 15th place. That is pretty terrible from a driver who needs to get a good qualifying in here. Did not have the greatest round, had a late race retirement. I think it was a disconnection on the final lap of the race. Had a disconnection back in Silverstone as well. A podium at the Red Bull Ring. That is horrifying for Kai Bettini, who has rejoined the racetrack but will not have enough time to get round to start and complete another timed lap. That's rough. That's really rough.
Yeah, he's not had the best season so far, and that's going to make it even more difficult, as I think he's been put down another place. As Fairclough goes up towards the top, only half a tenth off Mercurius. Look at that. So close between the two. And Fairclough obviously getting a really good qualifying last time out as well. So he certainly has got up to speed with this car, and looks like we're going to see a very good battle at the front. But has he done that on his own? Because if he's done that on his own, that is a very good lap.
I think... So potentially was a little bit of slipstream early on. Obviously, what we're seeing now is clean air, etc. Although, to be perfectly honest, if you are in clean air like this, sometimes you can set yourself a very, very healthy lap time by just not being distracted and just doing your own thing. You know, we've seen it time and time again. You brought it up in the girls' race. Is sometimes the best thing to do is go out there and do the session solo. Don't try and be near anyone else. Don't try and get involved in trying to grab a slipstream. Just go out there and do a lap time solo. And to be honest, if you've got the pace to qualify into this race, then you've got the pace to move yourself up inside the top 10. And I think that might be what Deegan Fairclough is showing, as Fabian Ballon has moved his way up. Joe Hayes Jr. also into 9th place, and some more movement as well.
I have to say, I'm surprised at the little bit of a gap there is towards sort of the mid part of the top 10, the top sort of 3-4 cars have a bit of a jump there, and just showing their slightly superior pace. So I wonder how that is going to turn in terms of the race pace as well, because qualifying is one thing, but doing it for 30 minutes is another. As actually we have Warren, he's actually set a time at the back of the field, but he's obviously lifted off or something, being down at a 2:30. So maybe just really trying to get a feel for the car before we head into the race, because he knows he's got a big job ahead of him to try and get up all those places back towards the top 10, because here's only the top 10 to get the points, and even then P10 only gets 1.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what it is across the second sector. Obviously, I don't think it's bad to try and get a benchmark, and there we go. Look at that pace Dylan Warren's got. Obviously incredibly fast. Like I say, if you're going to try and start from the back, why not? But go out there and go and get a feel for it. Like if there's track time that's open, don't waste it. Obviously get out there and try and see what it's like. But be very interesting to see if he actually completes this lap and goes back. It's almost a coward's move, but he's still fighting and reputation and all that. We'll have to wait and see. He's dropped it anyway. Maybe. Okay. Devil's advocate. Was that a tactical dropping? So it's like, see?
A tactical dropping.
Yeah. I'm going to start from the back, but I'm not going to make it look as ridiculous.
So, as that has happened, Deegan Fairclough at the front. Look at that lap time. That is a stonking. That's almost a second quicker than 4th place. That's a huge lap from Fairclough.
That is mega. And also clean air, and was down in the first sector as well. Superb stuff from Deegan Fairclough to potentially take this pole position. Of course, we know a few times might still come in whilst we look at our standings for the end of this qualifying session. Deegan Fairclough, Theo Mercouris on the front row of the grid with Nathan Clifford, Will Young, Oliver Bunn, Ronnie Smith up there in 6th place as well. That's fantastic stuff. There is some movement late in this session as well. Kind of were expecting maybe something was going to happen, obviously, with so many drivers out on the racetrack, but moving some down. Fairclough, Mercouris, Clifford, Luzio, and Will Young, the top 5. The rest of the order you can see on your screen there, down to 19th spot of Dylan Warren, 4.7 seconds off, although we know that is absolutely not representative, and now gets to go out racing.
Yeah, this race is going to be really good. Let's see how far Warren can come back up the field. Going to be difficult. These guys are very consistent on pace. They know what they're doing, and they are going to be just putting on a bit of a show for us. So 30 minutes of racing coming up, and a final few sort of points playing positions are up for grabs with just 2 races left in this series.
It is the penultimate race. Absolutely. Just one more after this. We'll go racing at the Hockenheim Ring, which you can take part in. It is presently open on RaceRoom. You can go to racingstar.com to find all of the relevant information as how to take part in the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. 15 years of age and a UK resident, and you can jump yourself onto this grid and give yourself a chance to get onto the racing grid in real racing in the British Formula 4 Championship. Let's see how things get underway here, though. Deegan Fairclough and Theo Mercouris on the front row of the grid, and that run down to La Source will begin now as they are all back underway, and it is obviously a dicey start down into turn 1. It's Theo Mercouris, though, who's got the launch down into turn 1, and for the second time we go racing here, it is a red car that leads into the first corner. A lot of pinching down at La Source. Of course there always will be. Our focus on Oliver Bunn, the podium sitter from the previous race of the season. Adam Alderton is the one that was trying to race him down towards Eau Rouge, but it is Theo Mercouris leading the way from Deegan Fairclough, from Nathan Clifford, from Marcus Luzio and Will Young.
Staying very close, and this slipstream is going to be huge with all these cars still in a line, and I don't know if this is going to end up in this same order by the time we get towards this chicane. It looks like a bit of bump drafting, though, staying in line as Mercouris holds that inside line, trying to be the one to lead the way, and it's going to be side by side there around the outside. Fairclough, is he going to be going for the lead up the inside of the second part, and Clifford is going to be potentially coming back these two, which he isn't. Mercouris there holds on to the lead, and these guys are fighting for every single inch.
Yeah, watch out for Marcus Luzio, Luzio, who was defensive in the background as well, nearly got himself up into third position. A little bit of contact on the rear end of Deacon Fairclough as Nathan Clifford was just trying to filter his way through. He was trying to find his way into second position. No advantage just yet. The defensive move from Marcus Luzio keeping Will Young at bay. Watch out for this train behind. Oliver Bunn as well in that yellow car. He was giving itself a bit of a look down into the corner with no name, not trying to follow that slipstream. A little bit wide on entry down into Pouon from Theo Mercurius, and Deacon Fairclough was eyeing it up. Still no way to make a pass. It is tricky to make moves on a consistent basis on a field like this, around a circuit like this. At the moment, they are all single file heading into Fania.
It's great to see they're staying so close through Sector 2. I expect we're going to see this sort of train staying like this for quite a while, but the top three are starting to pull away a little bit from Luzio, who's also got a bit of a 3-car train behind him, so it is going to splinter up into a few separate smaller packs. But as we stand, it is Mercurius leading the way. Can he hold on to this from being in a good position in other races, been struggling in a few others as well, had a bit of a up and down season so far. And Fairclough, he's got nothing really to lose, joining the championship late, just needs to see where he can get himself to. But now side by side, coming up towards the final chicane, Clifford just in the background thinking about it, but Fairclough all the way around the outside taking the lead, and that is a nice clean move.
Yeah, superb stuff just around the outside going down to the final chicane, but it certainly is not done yet as Mercurius, Clifford, Luzio, they are all going to be right in tow. The defensive move from Deacon Fairclough coming down to Lazors, who hold that really, really tight line. We'll see what Mercurius does if he backs out of it. Exactly. Nathan Clifford is going to look down the inside. There's a little bit of contact between the two. The blue car of Marcus Luzio was also fancying a little bit of a charge, a bit of side-by-side in the background as Joe Hayes Jr. And Kai Bacchini and Fabian Boland, they were all battling it out a bit further. By the way, your Dylan Warren update, he's gone from the back of the grid up to 15th on the first lap of running here at Spa, as Theo Mercurius coming straight back into it over the top at Radion, running through the camel curve. Surely will try and attack for the race lead coming down into Les Combes, as well as Marcus Luzio attacking Nathan Clifford for that podium spot on the run into the braking zone. Let's see what happens. A little bit of a backing out there from Theo Mercurius, and Deacon Fairclough's going to lead, but look at that from Nathan Clifford looking back to the inside, still not able to make it.
And he had a bit of a really poor run actually out of La Source. That has brought Luzio straight back into this battle, and you just saw the sort of the bum drafting really caught back up after that. But now Luzio down the inside of Rodger. Is he going to be able to get down to the inside? Yes, he can. Pushing Clifford a bit wide actually, getting himself in that prime position to take that place, and he moves up into third.
Yeah, Oliver Bunn and Will Young as well were quite close. You can see Oliver Bunn running out a little bit wide. Said before, Oliver Bunn was on the podium in the previous race this season, courtesy of contact between Deacon Fairclough and Marcus Luzio going down into the Parabolica, if memory serves. And it just opened up the opportunity for Oliver Bunn to sweep around the outside and grab that final spot on the podium. And it was, to be honest, after rewatching it, it was absolutely fantastic, an enthralling affair. But look at this, Nathan Clifford, he's not satisfied with losing it, and why would he be? Dropping out of a podium spot this early in the day, to be fair, you've got to be sat there in that position thinking, okay, no harm, no foul, I'm still in this battle.
Oh, absolutely. Don't sort of get too downbeat by this point. There's still plenty of racing before we get to that checkered flag. Just got to work out when you're going to be making your positions back, as Clifford now is actually under attack from the car behind, which is Will Young, who's made up quite a few places actually, just from the beginning, sort of moving around a bit in the lower parts of the top 10. Will Young trying to get to the inside, but Clifford's going to fend him off and actually going to take that. Oh, actually, we're going to get a bit of a switcheroo there from Will Young all over the inside curve. Bit of contact between the two. Clifford doing some hard defending here, and Will Young stays in fifth.
Yeah, that was a nice little attempt. A bit cheeky, though, to eye it up down into the chicane, but no way of completing that pass directly behind. Adam Alderton's quite close to Ronnie Smith. As we cross over another lap, there was a little bit of a move from Dylan Warren, moving down the inside of Tenek Rodrigo. The update is he's up to 11th position now, already flying up. He comes down the hill side by side with Tenek Rodrigo, of course, starting from 19th position, and was looking very fast in that qualifying session, as we expect for our two-time race winner within the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. Next up, Joe Hayes Jr. and a position inside the top 10 already in this race. Shows how fast he really is.
Yeah, is this going to be that top 10 position, as you say? But the run from the cars behind is huge. The slipstream is massive, coming up to Lakon, 3 wide almost as we get towards the braking zone. Can Dylan Warren take that place, stay inside the top 10 all the way around the outside?
Superb.
Yes, he can, just about so. And that is a great, bold move to get out himself just one singular point as we stand, as Joe Hayes Jr. now is trying to defend from Jack Badger as we come down towards Ravage for another time. It's actually going to be Rodrigo there now diving down the inside of Badger, trying to make move stickers out. Actually, we see a bit of sliding action there, and it is going to be Badger who takes that position in the end.
Will say concerns of impact on reputation from Dylan Warren for making that move to start from the back of the grid and actually committing to it. I think that the opening couple of laps here shows exactly why a move like that sometimes is always a good thing to do, because what you're doing is you're showing your ability to race, not just to lead from the front, not just to walk away from everyone, but to go side by side, to actually battle. Now, the first couple of races of the season, the first round, yep, he was quite close to Kai Bacchini, but there wasn't really any attack. The second round, he was battling it out with Theo Mercurius, but Theo Mercurius wasn't really attacking. There wasn't really very much. And in the previous round at Monza, once had got it really into second position, had just sat there as Bryn Collins was running away at the front, and he just kind of sat around in second position. We haven't really seen Dylan Warren properly race until this. And now we are seeing that it's not just race pace that Dylan Warren has. It is skill behind the wheel and the ability to move up the order. It is why a move like that is always good, as here comes Marcus Luzio down the inside of Theo Mercurius to grab second position, but that is way too deep on the brake, and the red car of Mercurius grabs that one back.
And fighting like that is just going to let Fairclough get away just a little bit more as Clifford comes back into the scene for these podium places. He's not out of it just yet in that 4th position, right on the back bumper of Luzio, trying to get the run as we come up towards Eau Rouge and Radion once again for another time. We've seen the slipstream here being so effective as we come up to Lake Com. And is Clifford going to be there enough? Sometimes you actually want to do a tiny lift off and then get back on it just to make sure you get the run up over the top of Radion before we get to this extremely long Kemmel straight. He's getting the run, he's getting the slipstream. The issue is the car ahead is also getting the slipstream as well, so it's going to be a bit of a dive here, a bit of actually bum drafting in the end, so Clifford may be sitting behind just for now.
You said Clifford potentially had practiced that one. We saw that in qualifying. Obviously, as the braking a little bit earlier from Luzio, I don't think that was necessarily intended from Clifford to look down the inside. But as Luzio was backing off of Mercurius, it caught Clifford out a little bit there, looked to the inside, did not complete any real major attempts to go and attack for that position. It's quite close behind with Will Young and Oliver Bunn. But that train, kind of how you were seeing at the previous round of the season, where the top two were split apart a fair amount. The battle for the podium was pretty tight, but it was that midfield battle that our eyes were absolutely glued to, and certainly is so today. Dylan Warren up to P7. Again, moving forward rapidly as expected. Now has a 3.5 second gap to go and catch Oliver Bunn. I certainly believe he's got the pace to go and close that one down, although it will be a bit of a tall order. Behind him, you've got Adam Alderton, Ronnie Smith, Jack Badger, all involved in one major train as we look backwards from Ollie Bunn. And you can see, just poking through shot there, is Dylan Warren in that white car. And 6 seconds behind him is Alderton, then Smith, Badger, Hayes Jr. as well, quite close. Fabian Bollins just got past, or is battling out with Tenek Rodrigo as well. Kai Bacchini as well involved in that battle. Bacchini, by the way, had got himself up inside the top 10 and has dropped back now to 14th. So clearly not struggling here, or struggling here rather, and not going too well. And then you've got O'Sullivan, Jean-Paul Lavaggi. Basically, it's madness.
It is absolute madness, as you say. 5-car battle now coming towards Blanchimont is pretty crazy. You've got to be so careful. So many variables happening here. Ballon getting the slipstream on the back of Rodrigo, coming towards the final chicane. But actually, is Bacchini actually going to think about this as well? Coming towards almost a 3-wide situation underneath the brakes, all the way around the outside. Tries Ballon, but he's actually going to lose out in the end. Bacchini there is going to have actually a bit of contact on the final chicane, final apex of the lap, as Rodrigo holds on, but Bacchini moves up a place.
Yeah, like I say, nice little bit. We know Bacchini can race. We know he can get his elbows out just a little bit. Saw plenty of great racing back at the Red Bull Ring, but then saw plenty of not so great racing. I'll put it that way. It's about the lightest way I can put it. Back in Monza And either way, it's showing some fair pace here as Joe Hayes Jr. leads this train. These splits appearing within them. Dylan Warren's pulled 1.1 seconds over Adam Alderton, and Marcus Luzio is once again fairly close to attacking for the podium. And I do not believe he will try and grab it. I think Theo Mercurius should be fairly safe in that one for now, but Mercurius isn't really feeling that. He is feeling the pressure behind, was defending very aggressively down into Les Combes, just trying to keep Luzio at bay. Nathan Clifford also very close, and a 2.5 second lead is what Deegan Fairclough has, separating him from the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's put himself in a great place in this championship, joining a tiny bit late, but already in 8th place actually in the standings. So he's put himself in prime position to get inside that top 16, and this race is really going to continue getting those extra points for that place. Is going to be really what he needs to secure that top 16, which shows you joining late doesn't necessarily mean you're out of this championship, which is good to see. And as we stand, Mercurius is just going to be losing the tiniest bit of time, half a second on the previous lap, and if that continues, it's going to be hard for him to go and take the race lead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, by the way, with the taking part in only a couple of rounds, again, it's about the top 16 in this championship. And I will say, the likes of Bryn Collins, who came along and did one round, he isn't taking part, did qualify for this, but has a broken hand right now. Obviously, we wish you a speedy recovery from that, because let's be honest, sim racing with a broken hand is suboptimal, to say the least. I think, to be fair, might see him back in the next round. But even if we don't, I'd still say with that race victory in the fastest laps, 26 points to his name, I think might actually still be fairly comfortable with qualifying anyway, showing that you only really need to do a couple of rounds and you can still get your way through with it, just being 3-point scores. If you score well, if you get yourself a podium, if you get yourself a race win, the chances of you going to Bolton and the NCME, fairly high, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he might only need that one point score, because I believe he got the fastest lap as well, which is why he's on the 26 points with the extra point as well. And it is very unlikely that 16th in the championship is going to get that many points. So yeah, fair play. If it's just one race out of the 5 that gets you entered, then yeah, albeit. And that's just the way the points system works, with it rewarding the winners of the races by quite a big jump, which is good to see, as Luzio on the back of him is Nathan Clifford, who is really perfecting this technique of the bump drafting, not overtaking. Actually is it, and finally out the inside of the final apex, he looked like he wasn't going to go for it, then he dived down the inside. We've seen him do that a couple of times. This time he actually did go for it, and maybe just getting Luzio a bit unaware there of the situation as Luzio goes down to 4th. But Clifford, he's done that a few times where he sort of sat behind, not overtaken, but this time he dived down the inside and he's made it up onto the podium.
Maybe sensing that the green car of Will Young was closing in a little bit. Hey, maybe sensing the white car of Dylan Warren was closing in a little bit, as certainly firing on all cylinders right now. I wouldn't even rule out genuinely 2nd place for Dylan Warren, who is closing in on Oliver Bunn. And right now that gap is under a second. Your top 10 sees Fairclough, Mercurius, Clifford, Luzio, Young, Bunn, Warren, Alderton, Ronnie Smith and Jack Badger inside that top 10. Further issues for the likes of Kai Bacchini, who are up there in the championship. Kai Bacchini is one that needs to score decent points here, I will say that, and presently isn't. I know he's not in the worst place in the championship, but after those couple of disconnections, really could do with a solid round. And obviously with qualifying down the order in 15th, yeah, it's a bit of a rough one.
Yeah, just looking at the championship, someone who is a bit lower down at the moment, Nathan Clifford, he's 13th in the championship with just 6 points to his name. So a 3rd place position here, or even 2nd if he can get Mercurius, he's really on the back of Theo now, would really get himself in a position to secure that top 16. Actually, Mercurius getting a bit of a worse run out of the exit of the final corner. Clifford coming towards La Source. Can he get a bit of a surprise dive down the inside, or is he going to wait till Les Combes? I think he's just going to wait till Les Combes and maybe try the same as he did last lap.
Yeah, and whilst this happened, Dylan Warren has cleared Oliver Bunn and will be closing in our attention on Will Young between these two battling packs. And Theo Mercurius, who, a bit of an issue there from Oliver Bunn out of La Source, dropped off quite far off the rear end of Dylan Warren, so will not be able to attack in the background. But Nathan Clifford now is closing in, going up towards the Kemmel curve just ahead of the shot that we're focused on now. Is he going to go for a move? Is it going to be a late one again? More so bump drafting to the rear end of Theo Mercouris, which we saw in that qualifying session, and not eyeing up the move just there, especially as there is no pressure on the rear end of Nathan Clifford because Marcus Luzio's over a second off.
I do wonder if these guys had a bit of a deal going on in qualifying, and if that is going to continue here in this race. We did see that with Warren and Mercouris back at the Red Bull Ring. It seemed like Mercouris was sort of just going to stay behind Warren for the whole race, not fight him too much. And I wonder if that is the same sort of in the reverse this time with Clifford. Just staying behind, trying to push them up, because it looks like Fairclough is a little bit too far up the road for both these guys. If it's a clean race towards the end, having some really good laps last time as well in the low 25s, getting very close. The only person who's really close to him is Warren, who's now coming down on the back of Will Young, and on the last lap was almost a second quicker.
Yeah, and like you say, absolutely flying. The last lap time from Dylan Warren was a 2:25.5. From Will Young, 2:26.5. From Marcus Luzio, a 2:27.0. That's why I'm saying, like, genuinely nothing is really out of reach at the moment from Dylan Warren. But for Nathan Clifford, has dropped off a fair amount from the rear of Theo Mercouris. You can kind of see that gap. More so towards sort of 6 or 7 tenths. Might well be dragging Marcus Luzio back into the mix. One person who is well out of reach right now, same as we saw from Bryn Collins back in Monza, it's our race leader, Deegan Fairclough, absolutely out of here.
And with that extra point as it stands as well, doing a brilliant job so far, and really I'd say, I mean, fourth place is still good, but maybe just underperformed the tiniest bit back at Monza as well. Really could be fighting for the victories, and if he can do it today, then that is going to put him in such good position, and you can't really complain. Last lap again, doing a very nice time. So he's being consistent as well at the front and just doing what he needs to do. He is obviously quite young, as all these drivers are, being 14, 15 years old, but he has been around for a few years now in other competitions I've seen, so he certainly knows what he's doing and just needs to control it from here and take it towards the end.
The first ever race that I commentated on that Deegan Fairclough was taking part in, he made a move into a Rouge, which, by the way, was absolutely fantastic in some GT3 cars. And that was on R Factor 2 2020. So he must have been 13 at the time, might have been quite late in the year. Again, incredible talent, battling it out with some pretty high-end talent that were dominating or were winning in the early stages of the Virtual Endurance Championship for Season 13 that year. Again, like to battle out with names like that, did a very, very good job, must be said, and clearly is not scared of anyone when it comes to racing around here. As the battling, it's tight stuff indeed, and Deegan Fairclough certainly showing the best of it.
Yeah, he is indeed, and it's quite crazy when you say someone of this age, obviously having experience, but that can happen, of course. And I think it's quite good when someone can put themselves in that position, even though they obviously don't have the most experience. They can still have the ability to then step up and take. So not be afraid of taking the victory and not being afraid of putting yourself in that good position and really just showing what they can do. As we obviously focusing on this battle, Adam Alderton being a bit more quiet in this race, but he certainly had a very eventful one last time out, going yo-yoing up and down the positions, and it seems like we've got a good battle forming out for this P8. Yeah,
there's been a few switches in the background of it. Ronnie Smith jumping into that 10th spot. Now Kai Bacchini up to 11th position at the moment, as Adam Alderton is trying to find his way. Did bring up that Adam Alderton when he took part in that first round for him at the Red Bull Ring, as he tries to go around the outside here. Might well be able to make this one stick. Not quite yet to get into the top 8, and now Ronnie Smith is going on the attack. Adam Alderton more accustomed to going racing on the dirt in some rallycross racing, in sim racing terms. A fantastic rallycross racer. This is something quite vastly different, although to be fair, you do need some quick hands to keep these cars going quickly around any racetrack. And you can see there as it snaps, departing La Source on that run down the hill. Ronnie Smith is very, very close. Tell you someone else is very close. Dylan Warren and Will Young, Nathan Clifford and Theo Mercurius are also very close up the order, so we can see some tight battles on that run down into Les Combes.
And let's see how this battle goes. Coming up towards Les Combes. Actually, Dylan Warren there going around the outside. Can he make it stick all the way around the outside? He'll have the inside for this next corner. Might be a bit of contact, but just having to back out of that one and actually not making up that 5th position. But I do think it's going to be coming sooner rather than later for Warren. He's done so good to come from the back of the pack and is now in such a good position. Even a 5th place here, even 6th place really would be a good result. But any more than this, it's just going to be those extra points, confirming himself in that top 16, but also confirming himself as one of the people to maybe go on and win the total prize, because passing all the cars so far is not easy, and just really sort of showing that he is the one to keep batting at the front. Because what you're saying, you know, it's probably a good thing to get experience with racing, but it's probably something from the mentality of the other drivers. They know he can come through the back if he has a bad race.
Are you saying he's the chosen one?
Chosen is a bit strong, but certainly that he's a potential one to be at the front.
He's basically Neo right now, Anakin Skywalker. He's a chosen one. He's here to bring balance to the Force, and at the moment, running from 19th position all the way up to 6th, certainly is doing so. And with Will Young, the next one to dispatch, was close to making that move into Les Combes, didn't quite make it stick. He's kind of feeling the pressure. He can't sit there like Nathan Clifford and sit on the rear end of Theo Mercurius and just sort of wait for the gap to build behind. He needs to go on the attack, and Dylan Warren right now eyeing it up backwards, inside, outside. Where is the move coming? Held quite nicely from Will Young. Just trying to make things awkward a little bit there from Dylan Warren, and surely there's not going to be a move down into La Source. It's got to come in Les Combes once more.
I think it will, and this is going to be the other sort of really good opportunity here down to La Source, although he's just going to sort of think about it, going to try and make Will Young take a worse line and get himself out of position, really trying to get in the high ground, make Will Young have a slower car as we come towards Eau Rouge and Radion. But I think Warren might be too close unless he wants to go for it down the side of Eau Rouge, but that would be a bit bold.
Speaking of the high ground, he really is the chosen one then. But yes, Dylan Warren is on the attack. It's got to come at Les Combes this time. And by the way, there is a 4-way fight directly behind us, which we'll have to go back to once we've seen this move potentially completed by Dylan Warren down into Les Combes. You'll see them coming into the back of shot just there. It's absolutely incredible on the cusp of the top 10. Dylan Warren to the outside of Les Combes. This time, second time is the charm. Maybe potentially made it stick, but the answer to that question is a very solid no. Will Young keeping him at bay around the outside at Malmedy, down the hill towards Ravage. The move is finally completed, but Will Young's looking back once again. Still not. Oh, a little bit too deep into the braking zone from Dylan Warren, and Will Young maybe coming back through corner with no name. Tick that one off as well. The outside line sometimes can prevail here, but not on this occasion. Dylan Warren threw it in and does have that top 5. That battle that I was speaking of, by the way, Ronnie Smith, Jack Badger, Kai Bacchini, Adam Alderton, Tenek Rodrigo, Joe Hayes Jr., Liam O'Sullivan, all super close in this train. Look at it.
And this is really for the points, for the final points of the pack. And this is where it could be quite important for some drivers actually getting towards the top 16, because every point counts. As we said, almost a dive there from Bacchini down the inside of the final chicane, but not able to make a move. And this is one of those times, if you don't attack yourself, you're going to be attacked from behind. So you choose your poison, which you want to do. And it looks like Bacchini now getting the exit up towards the straight, all the way towards Blanchemont, almost touching the car ahead of him of Ronnie Smith, and that might actually ruin his run towards Blanchemont, and we might be seeing Adam Alderson actually getting a bit of a better run with the slingshot effect, but having to back out that one just for now as Bacchini focuses on getting past Smith into Blanchemont, into the final chicane maybe, as he's almost touching the rear of this car for so long. At one point he's going to back out, but I think he's not going to be able to quite make that move as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dylan Warren still keeping Will Young at bay behind. It is pandemonium, to be perfectly honest. Look at them coming out of the final corner. It is crazy stuff indeed. Way too deep there from Dylan Warren. That looked semi-intentional to run that far deep, to maybe pick up the slipstream and potentially tick this one off coming back down to Les Combes. I don't know about that one. It is possible to miss your braking zone a fair amount, but I don't see Dylan Warren as being one of those drivers. it kind of could have been that thing of like almost like letting you pass for the DRS, knowing how important the slipstream is towards Lecom to not open him up for a move, because I think he's going to be able to tick this one up into the apex of Lecom once again, at which point, fair enough, that's actually not a bad idea.
And he was in a lot better position there. You saw he was quite far back, but then he's got the slingshot effect where you really you have the distance and you have loads of overspeed by the time you catch up to the driver. Whereas on the lap before, where he did actually make the overtake, he was too close, so he barely had any overspeed, and that just made the overtake a little bit more difficult. But it does look like he's actually been able to make that position, so fair play. Maybe just using that as a bit of practice to see some different overtaking styles and different ways that you can. But this battle for the bottom part of the top 10 is certainly heating up once again. I think Bacchini actually managed to get past Alderton at one point, but Alderton's back in front in that P10 battle. So yeah, crazy scenes going on in the lower parts of the top 10 as we're already getting to just a couple of laps left in this race.
Yeah, they will go for that extra bonus lap based on this pace. They will take 13 laps across the line in this one, so we'll still have 3 more left to go as we refocus on this battle. Adam Alderton and Ronnie Smith, very close. Kai Bacchini getting past on Tenek Rodrigo. Watch out as well for Joe Hayes Jr. in that blue car. Ooh, nearly chopped over the nose of Hayes Jr. Coming back into that sort of 12th, 13th position. Liam O'Sullivan at the rear end of this train as well, just watching this thinking, okay, there is definitely going to be a crash. Also, Fabian Bolan and Jean-Paul Lavaggi sat at the rear of that. Both of those two were inside the top 10 at the previous round at Monza, and they are sat in 15th and 16th place on the track at the moment. It shows how competitive this championship can certainly be. And you can see at the front of this grid as well that Jack Badger is sort of weaving all over the place. It's not obviously in defence. It's more so to try and get them to battle in the background. That's exactly what's happening. Adam Alderton deep on the brakes there from Ronnie Smith, nearly into the rear end of Jack Badger. Oh, there is contact, and Kai Bacchini's been sent around. Joe Hayes Jr. into the rear end, coming into the bus stop. There was contact there and was sent around. And Tenek Rodrigo, I think, also might be out of the race as well.
And that is not good for Bacchini. He's had a few too many bad races this season. A bit of contact there. Smith goes wide, and Alderton is going to be getting the run. And Jack Badger, I think he's actually doing sort of the wrong thing, because he's just slowing himself down. The fastest way around the track is the racing line. If he stayed on that, he'd be going that a little bit faster and maybe not being able to sort of be in the clutches of these guys behind. But that's all that action on the last lap has just sprinted up this pack just a little bit, and it looks like Badger's going to be able to hold on for Alderton, who is just a little bit too far behind on this straight, but he will be getting the slipstream for the previous for the coming straight at the end of this lap. So he's going to be in a good position by then, but he needs to make up that time. And just behind, looks like O'Sullivan and Ballon have been the ones to follow behind. Bacchini 15th and Rodrigo out of this race. So loads of things happening there and getting some dicey action with just a lap to go in this race.
Yeah, this battle then back for second position. Theo Mercurius, Nathan Clifford. I mean, to be fair, Theo Mercurius did this at the second round of the season, the Red Bull Ring, when he sat on the rear end of Dylan Warren for the entirety of the race. And we were kind of wondering, is he going to attack in the final moments? And never did. He might be sat there thinking with Nathan Clifford after a bit of communication potentially. Nathan Clifford might be like, I'm happy with third. Third will be enough. Third will be enough to potentially confirm my position to head to Bolton and the NCME in May. I'm happy with that. No need to take a risk. Deegan Fairclough's a little bit too far down the road with 1 minute and 10 seconds left on the clock. We can guarantee we are going for the 13th bonus lap. It is definitely a baker's dozen here at Spa.
It certainly is, yeah. It's looking like some really nice pace in this field. Very consistently fast times from Fairclough, and as you say, we're just about 50 seconds or so as we go across the line. It is going to be that extra lap, so Fairclough needs to do one more loop of this track to take home that victory. But Mercurius in the background battling with Clifford. Is Clifford going to stay there? I think he might just do, but we have seen him do the odd little dive down the inside of Lecom over the course of this race, mostly on Loser, who they've now dropped by quite a few seconds, actually just showing the pace and the consistency at the front of this field.
Dylan Warren, I don't think will be able to catch. Let's see what Nathan Clifford does this time. Now it is the last lap. He's starting to look, coming through the Kemmel curve. Is he going on the attack fully this time? The answer to that question is yes, indeed. Although might not have timed that one to perfection. A little bit of side-by-side contact between the two. Theo Mercouris defending the inside, the throwing it around the outside from Clifford. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of a brush between the two of them as Theo Mercouris just drifted out there into the rear right of Nathan Clifford, who does grab that second position. Let's see how Theo Mercouris can go back on the attack. Down into Ravage, the answer is no. There will 110% be a look, at least down into the bus stop.
Clifford, best position so far is 8th, so this is a great show from him. A great position it would be if he can hold on to this well, really this podium position, but even P2, it's even better for him. Just half a lap to go, but it is so difficult with that straight coming up towards the final chicane, running a bit wide there, just showing Mercouris that the opportunity is still available with just a few corners left to go in this lap. Mercouris is starting to really think about it, setting up the car, getting himself in a good position before we get onto the back straight.
Yeah, this is a superb turn of form. I didn't even realise that about Nathan Clifford. Yep, 2 top 10s, and they were in the first 2 rounds of the season. Didn't have a particularly brilliant run back in Monza. This time, though, much more like it. Our leader out of Curve Paul Frere leading very comfortably. We'll watch him as he crosses the line, but all eyes will be on that battle for second position, and Nathan Clifford and Theo Mercouris. For Deacon Fairclough, a drama in the final moments of the previous race at Monza reduced his chances of grabbing a podium, potentially reduced his chances of going to the NCME in Bolton in May. Well, I think we could do a 180 on that one as he crosses the line here at Spa to take a momentous victory. Deacon Fairclough victorious in the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. The boys' race goes his way, and we have our 3rd different race winner of the season. Behind that, Nathan Clifford does enough, just about to hang on from Theo Mercouris. Marcus Luzio in 4th, and I'd almost say, to be perfectly honest, one of the superstars of the day, Dylan Warren, will take a top 5, and that is a performance and a half. Look at this, though, from Ronnie Smith and Adam Alderton. Contact to the final corner. Is it going to open up the position for Liam O'Sullivan to come through and grab a top 10? No, the answer is to that one. Ronnie Smith is just about hanging on from Adam Alderton. Tight stuff, but what a race once again.
Yeah, these guys, they go for every single millimetre, every single position, and there, Ronnie Smith with a hugely aggressive move right at the final chance down the inside of the chicane, getting that P9, which could be all important at the end. The championship is going to be very close indeed, especially for that final, those final few positions in the top 16. But someone who has come in and really confirmed his place, I would say already, is Fairclough. As you see, fastest lap as well. So 26 points going the way of Deegan, and that is a really good performance. 5 seconds in the end as well. I mean, just a pretty dominant performance, really. Nice, clean qualifying lap as well. Battling through in the race, getting himself back towards the lead, and then just running away with it.
Yeah, I think as well, the only retirement for the race was in the form of a DQ for Tenick Rodrigo. I did wonder, because he did disappear coming out of the final corner. You can receive a DQ for courtesy of car contact and track limit violations as well. So fair enough on that one. But yep, a great victory from Deacon Fairclough. Nathan Clifford behind Theo Mercouris, Marcus Luzio, Dylan Warren, Will Young. Oliver Bunn inside the top 10 once again. Not quite the podium he had last time out, but fantastic battle behind him between Badger, Smith, Alderton, O'Sullivan, Ballon, Pacini, Jean-Paul Lavaggi, Joe Hayes Jr., and literally all of those were a part of it. Tenick Rodrigo as well, Kinrad Mole and Mensa, the final actual finishers in the race, all under a minute. That wraps us up, though, here at this round, the penultimate round of the season in Spa. But the season is not done yet, not by a long shot. We still have the qualification open for the next round of the season, as we'll take to the circuit at the Hockenheim Ring. You can go and qualify. It is open until the 28th of March, so for just over a week. Go and open RaceRoom Racing Experience. You can download it free on Steam. Go into the competition system, and if you're between the ages of 14 and 15 and a UK resident, you can take part. There is a boys race and a girls race, and we would love to see you on the racetrack on the 2nd of April. And of course, We will be racing at the grand finale in the NCME at Bolton. You can find out all of the relevant information on this by heading to racingstar.com, including the car we're racing in, where we're racing, and of course the all-important prizes which they are racing for. We've said it before, there is the chance to race in the 2023 British Formula 4 Championship, and obviously all of the training that goes with it, including an advanced ARDS license, plenty of karting training, an introduction to racing in open wheelers, such as the Formula 4 for the boys and the girls, of course. And for the runner-ups in that as well, second and third position, they get the chance to race in a Club 100 Experience Karting Championship as well. And then, of course, the top 10 finishers from the final will also receive themselves a ROKiT e-bike as well. So much up for grabs. We cannot wait to see you there. We also can't wait to see you on the 2nd of April. From myself, Lewis McGlade, from Cameron Rodger as well, we will say goodbye. And for one more time when we go racing at the Hockenheim Ring, we'll see you there. Until then, bye-bye.
Watching for the lights, they are on. Good start from pole position. That's the battle for the championship lead, just 7 points separating those two. Is he going to be able to get the run here? Contact there. This is going to be another massive story and another driver potentially on with a podium finish. He's got it! He's got it!